Close your eyes and take a journey back in time. Picture the grandeur of Rome, where emperors rose, armies clashed, and legends were born. But before the empire, there was the Roman Republic, a tale of political intrigue, military triumphs, and shocking betrayals. Are you ready to drift into history's most captivating chapter? Let the story of the Roman Republic guide you to sleep. The story of the Roman Republic begins not with a mighty empire, but with a small city on the banks of the Tiber River. In the 8th century BC, the people of this city, Romans founded what would become one of the most powerful civilizations the world had ever seen. But Rome wasn't always destined for greatness. It started as a small settlement, inhabited by a mix of Latin-speaking tribes, struggling for survival against neighboring tribes and threats from across the region. The Romans had their roots in myths and legends. One of the most famous stories is the tale of Romulus and Remus. According to the myth, these twin brothers were abandoned by the river and raised by a she-wolf. Eventually, Romulus would go on to become the first king of Rome after a bitter dispute with his brother Remus. This legendary tale of survival and rivalry set the tone for Roman history, a story marked by conflict, power struggles, and eventual triumph. For centuries, Rome was ruled by kings. However, in 509 BC, the Romans overthrew their last king, Tarquin the Proud, and established a republic. This was a defining moment in Roman history. No longer would a king hold absolute power. Instead, power was to be shared among elected officials. This system would allow Rome to flourish in ways that monarchy could never have. The transition from monarchy to republic was crucial. It marked the beginning of a political system where citizens, although only those who were wealthy and male, had the right to vote for their leaders, such as consuls, who served as the highest magistrates. The Roman Republic's structure included a senate made up of aristocrats who advised these leaders and made decisions on behalf of the people. It was a delicate balance, with power often shifting between the Senate and the people, creating tensions that would later erupt into political conflicts. Rome's early years as a republic were marked by its constant struggle for survival. Threatened by surrounding enemies, including the powerful Etruscans and other Italian tribes, the Romans were forced to fight hard to maintain control. The early Roman Republic was built on a clear division between two main social classes, the patricians and the plebeians. The patricians were the aristocratic class, the wealthy landowners who held most of the power, while the plebeians were the common people, farmers, artisans, and laborers who made up the majority of Rome's population. This class divide was at the heart of Roman politics, and it created tensions that would shape the Republic for centuries. For many years, the patricians held a monopoly on political power. Only they could hold high office, and only they were allowed to sit in the Senate. This meant that the plebeians, despite their numbers, had very little influence over the decisions that governed their lives. They had to pay taxes, fight in wars, and endure harsh laws. Yet they had no say in the creation or enforcement of those laws. In the early days of the Republic, these inequalities led to frequent unrest. The plebeians began to demand more rights and representation, and in 494 BC, they staged a massive strike, leaving the city and refusing to work or fight. This was known as the secession of the plebs. In response to this pressure, the patricians were forced to make concessions. One of the key outcomes was the establishment of the office of the tribune of the plebs. These tribunes were elected by the plebeians and had the power to veto decisions made by the Senate or other officials that they saw as harmful to the common people. This was just the beginning of a long struggle between the patricians and plebeians for equality. Over time, the plebeians would win more rights, including the ability to hold higher office and marry into the patrician class. One of the most important milestones came in 287 BC, when the Lex Hortensia was passed, making the decisions of the plebeian assembly, the plebeian council, binding on all Romans, including the patricians. This marked a significant step toward greater equality in Roman politics. The struggle for political rights wasn't the only source of tension between the two classes. Economic inequality also played a significant role in creating divisions. While the patricians owned vast estates and controlled most of the wealth, the plebeians often struggled to make a living. This was especially true in times of war, when soldiers would often lose their land and livelihoods after serving in distant campaigns. The rich would buy up the land, creating even more disparity. As the plebeians gained more political power, they began to demand reforms that would benefit them economically as well. They sought laws that would limit the concentration of land in the... As the Roman Republic grew, so too did its military power. One of the key factors behind Rome's rise to dominance in the ancient world was its well-trained and disciplined army, the Roman legions. These legions were the backbone of Roman expansion, and they would become legendary for their skill in battle and their ability to conquer vast territories. The Roman military was unique in its organization and structure. Unlike many ancient armies which relied on mercenaries or conscripted peasants, the Roman legions were made up of Roman citizens who volunteered for service. This was a major advantage, as soldiers were deeply motivated by loyalty to their city and their people. They served for long periods, and in return, they received land and wealth after successful campaigns, making military service a path to upward mobility. Roman soldiers were highly trained, learning how to fight in tight formations and use a variety of weapons, including the gladius, a short sword, the pilum, a throwing spear, and the scutum, a large rectangular shield. The Roman legions fought as a unit, with soldiers in close coordination, and they relied on discipline and organization to outmaneuver their enemies. Their ability to adapt to different battle tactics and their innovations in military strategy allowed them to defeat a wide range of enemies, from the fierce Carthaginian army to the tribal forces of Gaul. The legions were also known for their engineering skills. Roman soldiers were not only warriors, but also skilled builders. They constructed roads, bridges, and fortifications during their campaigns, enabling them to move quickly and efficiently across vast territories. These roads would later become the lifeblood of the Roman Empire, allowing troops and goods to travel easily, and ensuring that the empire could maintain control over its far-flung provinces. Rome's military successes were not just due to its well-trained soldiers, but also to its strategic leadership. The consuls, elected officials who held supreme power during times of war, were responsible for directing military campaigns. However, the Senate and the people also played a role in decision-making, particularly when it came to declaring war or negotiating peace. The Romans believed in the idea of just war and had a strong sense of military honor, which was embodied in their military code. One of the most famous military leaders in Roman history was Gaius Julius Caesar. His campaigns in Gaul are considered some of the most remarkable military feats of all time. Caesar's ability to lead his troops with courage and intelligence, as well as his political acumen, made him one of the most powerful figures in the late Republic. His success in expanding Rome's territory set the stage for the rise of imperial power. One of the most defining periods in the history of the Roman Republic was its series of conflicts with the ancient city of Carthage, known as the Punic Wars. These wars, fought between 264 BC and 146 BC, were crucial in shaping Rome's future and securing its dominance over the Mediterranean world. The Punic Wars were not just military confrontations, they were battles for survival, glory, and control of trade routes that would eventually transform Rome from a regional power to an empire. The First Punic War to 64241 BC began over control of Sicily, a strategically important island in the Mediterranean. Rome and Carthage both sought to dominate the island, and the conflict quickly escalated into a full-scale war. Despite being a relatively new power on the world stage, Rome was determined to win. The Romans had one major advantage: their ability to adapt quickly. They had no navy at the start of the war, but they built one from scratch, learning quickly how to fight naval battles. This was a turning point, as Rome, once limited to land-based warfare, proved itself capable on the sea as well. After years of bloody fighting, the First Punic War ended in Roman victory. Carthage was forced to pay a heavy indemnity and lose control of Sicily. For Rome, this was a major triumph and a signal that they were a rising power on the world stage. But the war was just the beginning of a long rivalry. Carthage, though weakened, was far from finished. The next stage of the conflict would see even greater challenges for both sides. The Second Punic War, 218-201 BC, is perhaps the most famous of the Punic Wars, largely because of the brilliant Carthaginian general Hannibal Barca. Hannibal's march across the Alps with his army, including war elephants, is legendary. His strategic genius and bold tactics stunned the Roman Republic. Hannibal won several major battles, including the Battle of Cannae in 216 BC, where he decisively defeated a much larger Roman army. For a time, it seemed that Rome might lose the war, and Carthage might emerge victorious. However, Rome's resilience came to the forefront. Instead of giving up, the Romans rallied under a new strategy led by generals like Publius Cornelius Scipio. Rather than confronting Hannibal directly, the Romans turned their attention to Carthage itself. Scipio invaded North Africa and in the Battle of Zama in 202 BC, decisively defeated Hannibal. Carthage, battered and exhausted, was forced to sign a peace treaty that stripped it of its overseas territories and severely limited its military power. Rome emerged victorious, and the balance of power in the Mediterranean had shifted decisively in its favor. The Third Punic War 149–146 BC was a final, brutal confrontation that ended with the complete destruction of Carthage. Rome, wary of the possibility of Carthage rising again, as Rome's empire grew, so did the social and political pressures that came with it. The success of Rome in the Punic Wars brought immense wealth, but it also created deep inequalities. The conquered lands were often given to wealthy patricians, leaving the common Roman soldiers who had fought in these wars without land to call their own. This growing divide between the rich and the poor in Roman society was a ticking time bomb, and it would take bold leaders to attempt to address the issue. In the 2nd century BC, two brothers Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus emerged as key figures in the struggle for reform. Both were passionate about solving the land distribution issue and improving the lives of the Roman plebeians. However, their efforts would not be met with easy acceptance. Their political careers would set the stage for the increasing instability of the Roman Republic. Tiberius Gracchus, the elder of the two, was elected tribune in 133 BC during his time in office. He proposed a law known as the Lex Sempronia Agraria, which aimed to redistribute land from the wealthy patricians to the poor plebeians. His proposal was simple, yet radical. Land would be taken from the large estates of the wealthy and given to Roman citizens who were landless. Tiberius believed that land distribution would not only help the poor, but also strengthen the army, as soldiers needed land to support themselves and their families. However, Tiberius's reforms were met with fierce opposition from the Senate, which was largely controlled by the wealthy patricians. Despite this, Tiberius pushed forward with the agrarian law. His actions, however, sparked violent protests and unrest. In the end, Tiberius was assassinated by a mob of senators, marking one of the first instances of political violence in the Roman Republic. Tiberius's death did not end the fight for reform. His younger brother, Gaius Gracchus, took up the mantle in 123 BC, becoming tribune and proposing even more ambitious reforms. Gaius sought not only to redistribute land, but also to address issues like grain supply, judicial corruption, and the expansion of Roman citizenship. He introduced a law that would make grain cheaper for the poor, and he also proposed that Roman colonies be established in newly conquered territories to give the poor land to farm. Gaius's reforms, like those of his brother, met fierce resistance from the Senate. However, Gaius was more skilled in politics, and at first, he managed to push through several of his proposals. But as his popularity grew, so did the fears of the Senate and the ruling elite. In 121 BC, after a series of political and social crises, Gaius was driven out of office and eventually forced to commit suicide, marking the tragic end of the Gracchi brothers' reform movement. The deaths of Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus demonstrated the deep divisions within Roman society. Their reforms had threatened the status quo, and in their attempt to address the economic and social imbalances of Rome, they had created political chaos. The violence surrounding their deaths also revealed the growing instability of the Roman republic that was supposed to be based on shared power and civic duty, but was increasingly becoming dominated by elites and violent factions. The story of the Roman Republic is one of constant tension between different social and political factions. The Gracchi brothers' attempts at reform had shown that the Republic was deeply divided, but it was the rise of powerful generals and the breakdown of traditional political structures that would ultimately lead to the Republic's decline. The first major figure in this new era was Gaius Marius, a military leader who transformed the Roman army and in doing so, played a pivotal role in the Republic's downfall. Marius was a brilliant general, but he was also a populist who saw the potential of the plebeians, the common people of Rome, in shaping the future of the Republic. In 107 BC, he became consul and introduced major reforms to the Roman military system. Before Marius's reforms, the Roman army was made up of men who owned land, as soldiers were expected to provide their own equipment and supplies. However, Marius recognized that this system excluded the poor and the landless, who formed the majority of Rome's population. In a radical move, Marius opened up the military to the landless poor, providing them with the state-issued weapons and supplies. This change had far-reaching consequences. The army became more loyal to individual generals rather than to the state itself, as soldiers now relied on their commanders for their livelihood and rewards. Marius's reforms had an immediate impact on Roman politics. He went on to win a series of military victories, most notably in the Jugartine War against the King of Numidia and in the Social War against the Italian allies, who had fought for Rome but were denied full citizenship. His success on the battlefield made him immensely popular, and he was elected consul an unprecedented 7 times. However, Marius's power was not to last. In 88 BC, another powerful general, Lucius Cornelius Sulla, came into conflict with Marius over command of a military campaign against King Mithridates of Pontus. The Senate, supporting Sulla, gave him the command, but Marius, with the support of the plebeians, seized power and forced Sulla into exile. This marked the beginning of a fierce power struggle between the two men that would tear Rome apart. Sulla, once exiled, returned to Rome in 83 BC with a private army and waged a bloody civil war to take control of the city. In a shocking act of power, he marched his troops into Rome and forced the Senate to declare him dictator. Sulla's dictatorship marked a key moment in the decline of the Roman Republic. He ruled with an iron fist, enacting proscriptions, or political purges, where he had thousands of his enemies killed or exiled. This marked a new level of political violence that had not been seen before in Rome, setting a dangerous precedent for future leaders. After several years of rule, Sulla eventually retired in 79 BC, but the damage had been done. His dictatorship had weakened the power of the Senate, and the idea of a single powerful ruler was now firmly planted in the Roman political system. Sulla's reforms and his disregard for traditional republican values created a new political landscape, one in which generals, rather than elected officials, wielded real power. The struggles between Marius and Sulla highlighted the deep flaws in the Roman Republic. The rise of Julius Caesar marked the beginning of the end for the Roman Republic. His story is one of ambition, military genius, political maneuvering, and ultimately, it's the complete transformation of Rome. His ascent to power was not just the result of his military conquests, but also his ability to navigate Rome's complex political landscape and use his popularity to challenge the established order. Caesar's early career was typical for a Roman aristocrat, came from a patrician family, but his political path was anything but easy. He first gained fame as a military leader in the Gallic Wars 5850 BC, where he expanded Rome's territory significantly by conquering the vast region of Gaul, modern-day France, and parts of Belgium, Germany, and Switzerland. His success in these campaigns made him immensely popular among the Roman people and his soldiers, who admired his leadership and rewards. However, Caesar's rise also made him enemies among the Roman elite, particularly in the Senate, who feared his growing power. Despite this, Caesar made clever alliances, including his famous partnership with Pompey the Great, another influential general, and Crassus, a wealthy politician. This alliance, known as the First Triumvirate, gave Caesar the political support he needed to advance his career. In 59 BC, Caesar was elected consul, one of the highest offices in the Republic, and used his position to push through laws that favored his political allies and strengthen his control. After his term as consul, Caesar sought a military command and was appointed governor of Gaul. It was during this time that he launched his military campaigns that would make him a legend. His conquest of Gaul brought immense wealth and glory to Rome, but it also earned him the loyalty of his army. His soldiers were fiercely devoted to him, and Caesar used their loyalty to secure his position in Roman politics. The phrase "the die is cast," which Caesar famously uttered when he crossed the Rubicon River in 49 BC, signifies the point of no return. Caesar's decision to lead his army into Italy and march on Rome was a direct challenge to the Senate, which had ordered him to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Caesar's crossing of the Rubicon marked the start of a civil war. He defeated the forces loyal to Pompey and eventually became the undisputed master of Rome. After his victory, he was declared dictator perpetuo, meaning he held dictatorial power for life. This move alarmed many senators, who feared that Caesar's reign would bring an end to the Republic's system of shared power. Despite his concentration of power, Caesar enacted a series of reforms aimed at addressing some of Rome's most pressing problems. He reformed the calendar, creating the Julian calendar, which is the precursor to the modern calendar we use today. He also redistributed land to veterans and granted citizenship to people in the provinces, expanding the base of loyal supporters. Caesar's reign was marked by a series of political reforms and large-scale building projects that transformed Rome. However, his concentration of power and his refusal to relinquish his authority made him increasingly unpopular among the Roman elite. In 44 BC, a group of senators, fearing that Caesar was becoming a tyrant, the death of Julius Caesar did not restore the Roman Republic as his assassins had hoped. Instead, it set the stage for another round of civil wars. As his supporters and rivals fought for control of Rome, ultimately, it was Caesar's grand-nephew and adopted son, Octavian, who would emerge victorious, transforming Rome from a republic into an empire. Octavian's rise to power was not easy. After Caesar's assassination in 44 BC, Rome was thrown into chaos. Caesar's loyalists, led by Mark Antony and his assassins such as Brutus and Cassius, clashed in a series of civil wars. However, Octavian was patient and politically astute. He formed a strategic alliance with Antony and another key figure, Lepidus, to create the Second Triumvirate in 43 BC. This powerful trio sought to avenge Caesar's death and secure control of the Republic. But like the first triumvirate before it, the Second Triumvirate was fraught with rivalry. After the defeat of Caesar's assassins in the Battle of Philippi in 42 BC, the alliance began to unravel. Octavian and Antony's relationship deteriorated, as both men desired ultimate power. The final blow came when Octavian turned the Senate and the people of Rome against Antony by accusing him of being too closely aligned with Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt, and of attempting to create a monarchy of his own. In 31 BC, Octavian and Antony faced off in the Battle of Actium, a decisive naval battle that would determine the future of Rome. Antony and Cleopatra were defeated and both committed suicide shortly afterward. With his rivals eliminated, Octavian stood alone as the most powerful man in Rome. In 27 BC, Octavian made a masterful move to solidify his control. Rather than proclaiming himself king or emperor, he presented himself as the restorer of the Republic. He returned power to the Senate and the people, but in reality, he held all the key military and political positions. The Senate gave him the title Augustus, meaning the revered one, signaling the start of a new era. This marked the beginning of the Roman Empire. Augustus became its first emperor, but he was careful to maintain the illusion of the Republic. He controlled the military, made key decisions on foreign policy, and held ultimate authority, but he never openly declared himself dictator for life, as his great uncle had. Instead, Augustus ruled with the title of princeps, or first citizen, which allowed him to exercise complete power while still adhering to traditional republican forms. Under Augustus, Rome entered a period of unprecedented stability and prosperity, known as the Pax Romana, Roman peace. Augustus reformed the government, established a professional army, and invested in public works, including roads, aqueducts, and buildings that would help Rome thrive for centuries. He also implemented social reforms, promoting marriage, family. The reign of Augustus brought about the transformation of Rome from a republic to an empire, and it set the stage for the rise of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, the first imperial family that would rule Rome for nearly a century. After Augustus's death in AD 14, power passed to his stepson Tiberius, beginning a line of emperors who would both shape and struggle with the future of the empire. Tiberius's reign, AD 14 to 37, was marked by a mix of stability and paranoia. though he had inherited the empire in a time of peace. Tiberius struggled to live up to the image of his adoptive father Augustus. His rule became increasingly unpopular, partly because of his reclusive nature and his reliance on a group of advisors, including his infamous Praetorian prefect Sejanus, who sought to manipulate Tiberius for his own gain. After Sejanus's fall in 31 AD, Tiberius became more isolated, ruling from the island of Capri and losing the trust of the Roman people. Despite these issues, Tiberius kept Rome's borders secure and preserved the empire's internal peace. Though his reign was also marred by accusations of cruelty and political purges, Tiberius was succeeded by Caligula, AD 37-41, his great-nephew, who would become infamous for his erratic behavior and tyrannical rule. Initially, Caligula was celebrated for his promise of reform, but soon after ascending the throne, his behavior became erratic. He is remembered for extravagant spending, cruelty, and claims of divinity, declaring himself a living god. His reign was marked by a series of bizarre events, such as allegedly appointing his horse, Insidious, as a consul, and making outrageous demands on the Senate and Roman citizens. His reign was cut short when he was assassinated by members of his own guard. And Rome breathed a sigh of relief as his terror came to an end. After Caligula's assassination, the throne passed to Claudius AD 41-54. Who was the first emperor in the Julio-Claudian line to come to power through a military coup rather than by inheritance. Claudius, despite his initial lack of political experience, proved to be an effective ruler. He expanded the Roman Empire into Britain, reorganized the government, and improved the judicial system. However, his reign was also marked by intrigues within his family, particularly the machinations of his fourth wife, Agrippina the Younger, who plotted to have her son, Nero, succeed Claudius rather than his own biological son, Britannicus. Claudius died under mysterious circumstances, with many historians speculating that he was poisoned by Agrippina to secure Nero's rise to power. Nero, AD 54-68, became emperor at the age of 16, and his early reign was relatively moderate, with guidance from his mother, Agrippina, and his advisors, including the philosopher Seneca. However, as he grew older, Nero became increasingly tyrannical. He is infamous for his cruelty, including the persecution of Christians, whom he blamed for the Great Fire of Rome in AD 64. He is also said to have neglected the affairs of state, indulging in extravagant luxuries and artistic pursuits, such as following the chaotic year of the four emperors, Rome found itself in need of a stable ruler to restore order and regain the confidence of its citizens. The Flavian dynasty, beginning with Vespasian in AD 69, provided that stability. Vespasian, a general who had served under Emperor Nero and helped suppress the Jewish revolt, became the first emperor of the Flavian line, and his reign marked the beginning of a new era of Roman power and prosperity. Vespasian's rule AD 69-79 was pragmatic and focused on rebuilding Rome's economy and military. His first priority was to restore stability after the civil war that followed Nero's death, reformed the imperial finances, secured the borders of the empire, and worked to restore the prestige of the Roman legions. One of his most notable achievements was the initiation of the construction of the Colosseum, originally known as the Flavian Amphitheater, which became one of the most iconic symbols of Roman engineering and entertainment. The Colosseum was built with the spoils of the Jewish war, which included the famous Temple of Jerusalem's treasures. In foreign policy, Vespasian successfully expanded the empire. He completed the conquest of Britain, a long-standing Roman goal, and solidified Roman control over Judea after the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem. His reign also saw the successful stabilization of the provinces and the establishment of a more organized and professional army. Vespasian's son, Titus AD 79-81, succeeded him after his father's death. And although his reign was short, it was marked by both tragedy and triumph. Titus is perhaps best remembered for his role in the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in AD 79, which destroyed the cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum. The disaster was one of the deadliest in Roman history. But Titus's leadership in responding to the crisis earned him the admiration of the Roman people. Titus also completed the Colosseum, which was inaugurated in AD 80 with grand games that celebrated the grandeur of the Flavian dynasty. His rule, however, was overshadowed by personal tragedy. His brother Domitian would eventually succeed him. though his reign would mark a stark departure from the relative stability of the early Flavian period. Domitian AD 81 to 96, the younger brother of Titus, is remembered for his authoritarian rule and his obsession with maintaining power. Unlike his father and brother, Domitian was a more controversial figure, and his reign is often described as one of tyranny. Domitian sought to increase his authority by centralizing power in his own hands, issuing coins bearing his image and styling himself as Dominus et Deus, Master and God, a title that suggested his divinity. His actions alienated the Senate, leading to his increasing isolation. Domitian also pursued aggressive military campaigns, particularly along the Danube River, to expand the empire's northern borders. Though his successes were often overshadowed by his political repression, he ruled with an iron fist, executing or exiling those he saw as threats, including members of the Senate and even his own family. His reign ended in AD 96 when he was assassinated in a palace conspiracy, and his death was welcomed by many as the end of an oppressive era. Despite Domitian's later notoriety, the Flavian dynasty played an important role in the consolidation of imperial power. After the tumultuous reign of Domitian, the Roman Empire entered a golden age, known for its relative peace, economic prosperity, and impressive cultural achievements. This period was marked by the leadership of the five good emperors, a series of rulers who governed Rome from AD 96 to 180. These emperors Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus, Pius, and Marcus Aurelius are remembered for their wise governance, dedication to the welfare of the empire, and the establishment of enduring reforms that helped Rome flourish. The first of the five good emperors was Nerva, AD 96 to 98, who became emperor after the assassination of Domitian. Nerva was an elderly and moderate figure, chosen as emperor by the Senate. His reign was relatively short, but he made a significant contribution to the future stability of Rome by adopting a policy of respecting the Senate and working cooperatively with them. Nerva also established a new practice in the imperial succession, adopting an heir based on merit rather than family ties. This helped ensure that competent leaders would continue to guide the empire after his death. Nerva's adoption of Trajan AD 98 to 117 as his successor marked the beginning of the height of the Roman Empire. Trajan is often regarded as one of the greatest emperors in Roman history. Under his leadership, Rome reached its greatest territorial extent, stretching from Britain in the west to Mesopotamia in the east. Trajan's most famous military achievement was the conquest of Dacia, modern-day Romania, which brought immense wealth to Rome. The spoils from these campaigns were used to fund monumental building projects, including Trajan's Forum and Trajan's Column in Rome, which celebrated his victories. Trajan was also known for his social reforms. He established the Alimenta program, which provided state-funded assistance to poor children in Italy. His policies focused on the welfare of the Roman people, and he ensured that the provinces were governed justly. His reign is often remembered as a time of military success, peace, and prosperity, making him a popular and beloved emperor. After Trajan's death, his adopted son Hadrian, AD 117 to 138, took the throne. Hadrian is best known for consolidating the empire's borders rather than expanding them. He recognized the need to secure and stabilize the vast territories that Rome controlled. One of his most famous actions was the construction of Hadrian's Wall in Britain, which marked the northernmost boundary of the Roman Empire. Hadrian was also an admirer of Greek culture and sought to strengthen the cultural ties between Rome and the Greek world. His reign was also marked by architectural achievements, including the rebuilding of the Pantheon in Rome, which still stands as a marvel of ancient engineering. Hadrian's successor, Antoninus Pius, AD 138 to 161, was another ruler known for his calm and wise leadership. His reign is often described as a time of peace and stability, with few military conflicts. Antoninus focused on maintaining the prosperity of the empire, ensuring that the borders were secure and that Rome's laws were justly enforced. He is also known for promoting legal reforms and for his dedication to the welfare of the people. His reign was one of the most uneventful in terms of military conquest, but it was marked by economic stability and the flourishing of Roman culture. The final emperor of the five good emperors was Marcus Aurelius, AD 161 to 180, who is often considered one of the greatest philosophers in history. Known as The period following the reign of the five good emperors was one of profound instability for the Roman Empire. By the late 2nd century AD, the empire faced a series of internal and external challenges that would lead to what is known as the crisis of the 3rd century, 235 to 284 AD. During this time, Rome was beset by political chaos, military anarchy, economic decline, and external invasions, which nearly brought the empire to the brink of collapse. The crisis began with the assassination of Emperor Commodus in 192 AD. Commodus's death marked the end of the Nervantanine dynasty, and the empire fell into a period of political turmoil. Over the next several decades, the empire experienced frequent changes of rulers, with many emperors being assassinated or overthrown by their own soldiers. This period, known as the Barracks Emperors, saw a rapid turnover of emperors, more than 20 in a span of just 50 years, one often relying on military support to maintain power. During this time, Rome was also besieged by a series of external threats. In the east, the Persian Sassanid Empire was a growing force, and it launched repeated invasions of Roman territory, including the capture of the Roman Emperor Valerian in 260 AD in the north. The empire faced invasions by various Germanic tribes, such as the Goths, Vandals, and Franks, who began raiding Roman provinces along the Danube and Rhine rivers. The empire's borders, once strong and secure, were now under constant threat from multiple directions. To make matters worse, the empire was also dealing with economic decline. The constant warfare drained the imperial treasury, and inflation soared as the government began to debase its currency. The silver content of Roman coins was reduced, leading to a loss of confidence in the currency and further economic instability. The empire's vast territories, once unified, began to suffer from internal divisions as well, with some regions, such as Palmyra and Gaul, briefly breaking away from central Roman authority. In response to these crises, the empire underwent a series of reforms and restructuring, the most important of which came under the leadership of Emperor Diocletian, reigned 284 to 305 AD. Diocletian, a capable and ambitious military leader, recognized that the Roman Empire had become too large and unwieldy to be effectively ruled by a single emperor. In 293 AD, he established the Tetrarchy, dividing the empire into 4 regions, each governed by an emperor or Caesar. This system of rule was designed to provide more effective governance and ensure the stability of the empire. Diocletian's reign also saw significant administrative, military, and economic reforms. He restructured the military to better defend the empire's borders, and he introduced new tax policies aimed at stabilizing the economy. Diocletian also took drastic measures to curtail inflation, including price controls on goods, although these proved largely ineffective in the long run. His most notable legacy, however, was his decision to retire voluntarily in 305 AD, a move that was unprecedented in Roman history and showed his desire to prevent the power struggles that had plagued his predecessors. Following Diocletian's retirement, the Tetrarchy system began to break down, leading to further conflict over succession. In 312 AD, Constantine the Great emerged as a dominant figure, defeating his rivals and ultimately becoming the sole ruler of the Roman Empire. Constantine's reign marked the beginning of a new phase in Roman history, one that would see the empire's transformation both politically and religiously. The crisis of the 3rd century left deep scars on the Roman Empire. While Diocletian's reforms temporarily restored order, they also revealed the fundamental weaknesses of the empire. The division of the empire into the Tetrarchy system foreshadowed a permanent split between the Eastern and Western Roman empires. Though the Western Empire would eventually fall in the 5th century, the Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantine Empire, would survive for nearly 1,000 years more. The crisis of the 3rd century serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerability of even the most powerful empires. It was a time of dramatic change, marked by both internal decay and external threats, but also by the resilience of the Roman state in the face of adversity. After the turmoil of the crisis of the 3rd century, the Roman Empire was in desperate need of strong leadership to restore order and stability. The figure who emerged to lead the empire into a new era was Constantine the Great, one of the most transformative emperors in Roman history. Constantine's reign at d. 36 to 337 is best known for the profound political, military, and religious changes he introduced, including the conversion of the Roman Empire to Christianity. Constantine's rise to power was not straightforward. After the death of his father, Constantius Chlorus, in 316, was proclaimed emperor by his troops in Britain. However, his path to sole rule was fraught with challenges. He had to contend with rival emperors and political factions, most notably the Emperor Maxentius, who ruled over Rome and Italy. Constantine's victory over Maxentius at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge in 312 AD was a decisive moment in his career, and it would change the course of Roman history forever. Before this battle, Constantine experienced a vision that would have a lasting impact on both his life and the empire. According to sources, Constantine saw a symbol in the sky known as the Chiro, along with the words in this sign, "Conquer," believing this vision to be a divine message. Constantine adopted the Christian symbol as his banner and made Christianity a key part of his reign. His victory at the Milvian Bridge, in which he defeated Maxentius, solidified his belief in the Christian God, and it marked the beginning of a new era for Rome. In 313 AD, Constantine, along with Licinius, issued the Edict of Milan, which granted religious tolerance to all religions within the empire, including Christianity. This was a groundbreaking move, as it effectively legalized Christianity and allowed Christians to practice their faith openly, without fear of persecution. The Edict of Milan is considered one of the most significant events in the history of Christianity, as it marked the transition from an era of persecution to one of acceptance and growth for the Christian faith. Constantine's support of Christianity went beyond legal tolerance. He took steps to promote the faith throughout the empire, provided financial support for the construction of Christian churches, including the famous Basilica of St. Peter in Rome. He also convened the First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, a meeting of Christian bishops from across the empire, where they sought to address theological disputes and establish a unified doctrine for the Church. The Nicene Creed, which emerged from this council, became one of the foundational texts of Christian belief. One of Constantine. The most significant actions was the founding of the city of Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul in 330 AD. Constantine chose the ancient Greek city of Byzantium as the site for his new capital, and he transformed it into a magnificent city that would serve as the heart of the Eastern Roman Empire for centuries. The city was strategically located at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, making it an ideal center for trade, culture, and military power. Constantinople would become the seat of the Byzantine Empire and a lasting symbol of Constantine's vision for a Christian Roman Empire. Constantine's conversion to Christianity had profound implications for both the Roman state and the Christian Church. His support helped Christianity to flourish. By the time of his death in 337 AD, Christianity had become the dominant religion in the empire. Constantine's reign marked a clear break from Rome's pagan past and established Christianity as the foundation of Roman imperial policy. However, Constantine's legacy is not without controversy. While he embraced Christianity, he continued to maintain elements of Roman pagan tradition and was never formally baptized as a Christian until his deathbed. His reign also saw a growing tension between Christianity and paganism, as the Roman world struggled to reconcile its traditional religious practices with the new faith. Constantine the Great's reign is often seen as a turning point in world history. His conversion to Christianity and the subsequent spread of the religion throughout the Roman Empire laid the foundation for the rise of Christianity as the dominant religion in Europe. Constantine's reign also set the stage for the eventual split of the Roman Empire into two parts: the Western Roman Empire, which would fall in 476 AD, and the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantine Empire, which would continue to thrive for nearly another 1,000 years. The reign of Constantine the Great marked the height of Roman power. But in the centuries that followed, the Western Roman Empire began to unravel. Despite its impressive legacy and immense cultural, military, and economic influence. The empire's eventual fall was a gradual process, shaped by a combination of internal weaknesses and external threats. By the end of the 5th century, the Western Roman Empire had collapsed, and the Roman world entered what historians call the Dark Ages. One of the key factors in the decline of the Western Roman Empire was the division of the empire. After Constantine's death, the Roman Empire was split into two parts: the Eastern Roman Empire, with its capital at Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, and the Western Roman Empire, centered in Rome. While the Eastern Empire, known as the Byzantine Empire, continued to thrive for nearly 1,000 more years, the Western Empire faced a series of challenges that weakened its ability to maintain control over its vast territories. Economic decline was one of the most significant factors contributing to the empire's fall. The Western Roman Empire faced constant financial strain due to military expenses, administrative inefficiencies, and increasing reliance on mercenary forces rather than loyal Roman soldiers. This reliance on non-Roman mercenaries, who often had little loyalty to the empire, further weakened the military. Additionally, the empire's vast size made it increasingly difficult to manage, with communication and transportation challenges that hindered the ability to respond quickly to crises. Political instability also played a significant role in the decline. After the death of the last strong emperor, Theodosius I, in 395 AD, the Western Roman Empire experienced a series of weak and ineffective rulers. Political infighting and corruption were rampant, and the power of the emperor became increasingly symbolic. The empire's leaders were often focused on internal struggles, and many were unable to effectively manage the empire's borders or address the growing threats from outside forces. In addition to internal problems, the invasion of barbarian tribes had a devastating impact on the Western Roman Empire. The Roman legions, once the most powerful military force in the world, were now overstretched and undermanned. By the late 4th and early 5th centuries, various Germanic tribes, including the Visigoths, Vandals, Ostrogoths, and Franks, began to push into Roman territory. These groups were initially invited into the empire as mercenaries or settlers, but soon became a serious threat to Roman rule. The sack of Rome in 410 AD by the Visigoths, led by King Alaric, was a symbolic blow to the Western Roman Empire. While Rome had been sacked before, this was the first time in over 800 years that the city itself had fallen to a foreign enemy. The Visigoths looted the city, marking the beginning of the empire's end. In 455 AD, the Vandals sacked Rome again, and in 476 AD, the final blow came when Odoacer, Germanic chieftain, deposed the last Roman emperor in the West, Romulus Augustulus. This event is traditionally seen as the end of the Western Roman Empire. Odoacer declared himself king of Italy and sent the imperial regalia to the Eastern Roman Emperor, signaling the official collapse of the Western Empire. The fall of the Western Roman Empire was not an instantaneous event. It was the result of centuries of decline marked by military defeats, economic struggles, and internal political instability. But it was also the result of the changing world around Rome. The Roman Empire had been built on the power of its legions, its vast territorial control, and its cultural cohesion. As the empire became more diverse and fragmented, it became increasingly difficult to maintain control. The Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantine Empire, continued to survive for several more centuries, until it too fell in 1453 AD, with the conquest of Constantinople by the Ottoman Turks. However, the fall of the Western Roman Empire marked a turning point in world history. It led to the collapse of a unified European power and the fragmentation of Western Europe into smaller, often warring kingdoms. In the centuries following the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Europe would experience. While the Western Roman Empire crumbled in 476 AD, the Eastern Roman Empire, known as the Byzantine Empire, endured for nearly 1,000 more years. Its capital, Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, became the new center of Roman power, preserving much of Roman culture, law, and traditions. The Byzantine Empire played a crucial role in shaping the history of Europe, the Middle East, and beyond, despite the challenges it faced from both internal strife and external invaders. The Byzantine Empire had its roots in the reign of Emperor Constantine the Great. who, as mentioned earlier, established Constantinople as the new capital of the Roman Empire in 330 AD. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Constantinople became the seat of Roman authority, and the Eastern Roman Empire continued to thrive. Under a new identity often referred to as the Byzantine Empire due to its Greek-speaking population and its Christian faith. One of the most significant rulers of the Byzantine Empire was Justinian. The first reigned 527 to 565 AD, whose reign marked the height of Byzantine power and territorial expansion. Justinian's ambitions were vast, and he sought to restore the lost territories of the Western Roman Empire. Under his leadership, Byzantine forces reconquered parts of North Africa, Italy, and Spain from the invading Germanic tribes, including the Vandals and Ostrogoths. These military successes briefly restored much of the Western Roman Empire's former glory. Justinian's most enduring legacy, however, is his legal reforms, known as the Justinian Code, or Corpus Juris Civilis. This comprehensive compilation of Roman law provided the foundation for much of Western legal tradition and became a model for future legal systems in Europe. The Justinian Code remained influential long after the fall of the Byzantine Empire, shaping the development of legal thought for centuries. In addition to his military and legal achievements, Justinian also oversaw a golden age of Byzantine culture and architecture. The most iconic example of Byzantine architecture from this period is the Hagia Sophia, a massive cathedral built in Constantinople, which still stands as a testament to Byzantine engineering and art. The Hagia Sophia, with its massive dome and intricate mosaics, was one of the largest and most impressive churches in the world at the time, and remains an important symbol of the Byzantine Empire's religious and cultural influence. Despite its early successes, the Byzantine Empire faced numerous challenges. The empire's wealth and power were constantly threatened by external forces, including the Persians, Arabs, and later the Ottoman Turks. The rise of Islam in the 7th century in particular posed a major challenge to the Byzantine Empire. The Arab conquests of the 7th and 8th centuries resulted in the loss of Byzantine territories in the Middle East and North Africa, including Egypt, Syria, and Palestine. In addition to external threats, the Byzantine Empire was plagued by internal instability. The empire suffered from a series of dynastic struggles, military defeats, and economic challenges. The Byzantine emperors were often forced to contend with rival factions within the imperial court, and many emperors faced rebellion from their own people or military commanders. The empire's dependence on mercenaries and its struggle to manage its vast territories also contributed to its eventual decline. One of the most significant turning points in Byzantine history was the Fourth Crusade 1202 to 1204, when Western European crusaders, originally intended to recapture Jerusalem from Muslim control, turned their sights on Constantinople. In 1204, the Crusaders sacked Constantinople, looting the city and causing widespread destruction. Although the Byzantines would later retake the city in 1261, the sack of Constantinople dealt a blow from which the empire would never fully recover. By the 15th century, the Byzantine Empire had been reduced to the city of Constantinople and its surrounding territories. The empire's military and economic power had dwindled. It faced constant pressure from the Ottoman Turks. In 1453, Constantinople finally fell to the Ottoman Empire under Sultan Mehmed II. Marking the end of the Byzantine Empire and the conclusion of the Roman Empire's more than 2,000-year existence, the fall of Constantinople in 1453 had profound consequences for both the Eastern Mediterranean and Europe. It marked the end of a major Christian stronghold in the East and the beginning of Ottoman dominance in the region. The loss of Constantinople also contributed to the rise of the Renaissance in Western Europe, as scholars and intellectuals fled the city, bringing ancient Greek and Roman manuscripts with them, which helped revive classical learning in the West. Despite its eventual fall, the legacy of the Byzantine Empire lived on. The Byzantine Empire preserved and transmitted much of the knowledge and culture of the ancient world, particularly Roman law. Although the Roman Empire fell in the West in 476 AD, and the Eastern Roman Empire Byzantine Empire met its end in 1453 AD, the legacy of Rome has endured for millennia. The Romans not only created one of the most powerful empires in history, but also laid the foundations for many aspects of modern life. From law to architecture, from language to governance, the influence of Rome is still felt around the world today. One of the most enduring aspects of Roman legacy is the Roman legal system, which has shaped legal practices in the Western world for centuries. Corpus Juris Civilis, or Justinian Code, which was compiled under Emperor Justinian I, remains a cornerstone of modern civil law systems. Its concepts of legal equity, property rights, and contract law have been adopted by many countries and influenced the development of international law. The idea of legal protection for individuals, as well as the principle that laws should apply equally to all citizens, is a direct inheritance from Roman jurisprudence. Roman architecture and engineering also continue to inspire modern designs. Romans were master builders, and their innovations, such as the use of the arch, the dome, and concrete, revolutionized construction. The Colosseum, the Pantheon, and aqueducts are just a few examples of their lasting architectural achievements. Roman roads, many of which are still in use today, provided a model for modern transportation networks. And the Roman ability to build infrastructure on such a massive scale was unparalleled. These architectural feats not only allowed the empire to function, but also demonstrated the Romans' commitment to beauty and function, which modern architects still strive to emulate. The Latin language, which originated in the heart of the Roman Empire, also has a profound impact on the world today. Latin became the official language of the Roman Empire and is the precursor to the Romance languages, including Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian. Even in modern English, many words, particularly those in law, science, medicine, and religion, have Latin roots. The widespread use of Latin in education and scholarship helped preserve Roman knowledge and spread it throughout the medieval and Renaissance periods. In terms of governance, the Roman Republic and its system of checks and balances influenced the development of modern democracy. The Roman Senate, though it was not a democratic body by modern standards, provided an early model for representative government. The Romans also introduced the idea of civic duty, where citizens were expected to contribute to the functioning of their government. This idea would later influence the democratic systems that emerged in Europe and the Americas, including the United States. The Roman practice of electing leaders through public assemblies and the concept of consuls paved the way for modern political institutions such as parliaments and congresses. The spread of Christianity, which was greatly facilitated by the Roman Empire, is another key part of Rome's lasting influence. Initially persecuted, Christianity eventually became the state religion under Constantine the Great in the early 4th century. The Roman infrastructure, such as roads and communication systems, allowed Christianity to spread quickly throughout the empire. After the fall of Rome, the Christian Church became the dominant institution in Western Europe, influencing art, culture, and politics for centuries. The Vatican, based in Rome, continues to be the spiritual center of the Roman Catholic Church, which remains one of the largest religious institutions in the world today. Rome's influence also extended to culture and education. Roman philosophers like Cicero and Seneca, along with Roman historians like Livy and Tacitus, laid the foundations for Western thought and historical writing. Roman law and political theory influenced the development of political systems in Europe. And Roman ideas about citizenship, rights, and governance continue to resonate in modern legal and political thought. The Roman Empire's military strategies and innovations also had a long-lasting impact. The Roman legions, known for their discipline and effectiveness, were among the most formidable fighting forces in history. Roman military tactics and organization continued to influence modern armed forces, particularly in terms of training, strategy, and the organization of units. Perhaps one of the most powerful symbols of Roman legacy is its ability to transform and adapt. The Roman Empire was vast, and while it eventually fell, it never truly disappeared. Its traditions were absorbed and carried on by the Byzantine Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, and even the kingdoms that rose from its ashes. The Roman Empire's political systems, legal codes, architectural innovations, and cultural influences laid the groundwork for the development of modern Western civilization. In the modern world, the concept of Romanitus, the idea of being Roman, has persisted in both popular culture and the modern political imagination. Despite the fall of the Roman Empire in the West, Rome itself has remained one of the most enduring symbols of the ancient world. Known as the Eternal City, Rome continues to stand as a monument to the greatness of its past, while serving as a living city at the heart of modern Italy. The modern world in all its diversity still feels the influence of Rome in countless ways. Rome's status as the capital of the Roman Catholic Church and the seat of the Vatican is one of the most visible and influential aspects of its legacy. The Vatican City, an independent city-state within Rome, remains the spiritual center for over 1 billion Catholics worldwide. The Pope, as the leader of the Roman Catholic Church, plays a significant role in both religious and political spheres. Continuing the influence that began with Constantine's adoption of Christianity in the 4th century, the Vatican's power, history, and influence reach far beyond the walls of the city, shaping global politics, diplomacy, and international relations. Rome also remains a center of art, culture, and education. As the birthplace of some of the world's greatest philosophers, writers, and artists, the city has a rich history that continues to influence creative fields today. Renowned museums, such as the Vatican Museums and the Capitoline Museums, house countless works of art, including masterpieces by Michelangelo, Raphael, and Caravaggio. The Roman legacy of public art and monumental architecture can be seen in these works, as well as in the city's awe-inspiring structures, like the Pantheon, the Colosseum, and the Roman Forum. Rome's unique blend of the ancient and modern continues to fascinate tourists, scholars, and citizens alike. Visitors from around the world flock to the city to experience its rich history firsthand, walking through ancient ruins, marveling at Renaissance art, and experiencing the vibrant life of a modern European metropolis. Whether it's a visit to the Roman Colosseum, the Roman Baths, or the Piazza del Popolo, Rome offers a living museum where the past and present coexist seamlessly. Politically, Rome remains the capital of Italy, influencing the country's direction in both European and international matters. The Italian government, with its institutions and political debates, is located in Rome, making it a focal point for contemporary discussions on governance, economy, and European unity. Furthermore, Italy's rich Roman heritage influences its culture, law, and society, with the city of Rome acting as a bridge between Italy's ancient history and its modern identity. Roman law continues to be a cornerstone of legal systems across the globe. The principles of justice, equality, and governance established by Roman legal scholars have been adopted and adapted in numerous countries. The structure of modern legal systems, including the use of Roman law in many European countries, provides a clear link between ancient Rome and modern judicial practices. The idea of citizenship and civil rights that the Romans developed has influenced the creation of democratic systems, including the rights of individuals in modern democratic societies. The Latin language, the lingua franca of the Roman Empire, still holds significant value in modern education, particularly in fields like law, medicine, and theology. Latin forms the basis of many modern languages, including Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian. Furthermore, Latin phrases, legal terms, and expressions are still frequently used in academic, legal, and scientific contexts, demonstrating the continuing relevance of Rome's linguistic contributions. Beyond education, Rome's legacy also lives on in public infrastructure. The Romans were exceptional engineers and builders. Their innovations in road construction, water supply, and public buildings have had a lasting impact on modern urban planning and development. The Roman concept of public baths, aqueducts, and public forums influenced the design of modern cities, where similar spaces for socializing, hygiene, and public services are still central to urban life. Moreover, the idea of empire, though no longer as prevalent as it was during the height of Rome's power, still carries significant cultural weight. Rome's methods of conquest, governance, and integration of diverse cultures have influenced the way modern empires and states operate. Even in the modern geopolitical landscape, the legacy of Roman diplomacy, military strategy, and empire building can be traced through the policies of various countries and international alliances. Rome's mythic status and its enduring legacy in literature have also influenced countless works of fiction. From Shakespeare's Julius Caesar to modern films about gladiators, emperors, and Roman gods, the stories of Rome continue to captivate the imagination of audiences worldwide. The themes of power, politics, betrayal, and glory